Today's episode of the Sustaining Creativity podcast is sponsored by Skillful Means. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Heather Wise, certified holistic health coach, mindfulness teacher, yoga instructor, and author. Please enjoy Heather Wise. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I am here with Heather Wise, holistic health coach, mindfulness teacher, yoga instructor, and author. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mari. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for inviting me.
You are so welcome. I am super happy that you are here, that we can chat about creativity and all of the things that you do. You do so many things in that list. But before we dive into our chat about creativity, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
All right. Yeah, I have been working in the wellness field now for over 10, 12 years. I worked in corporate wellness for a number of years. I've worked as a health coach for over 10 years, a holistic health coach. And in my coaching, I've specialized in the gut microbiome and all of the research around our gut health. And I wrote a book on that, which we'll probably get into at some point in our conversation.
Yeah.
But all my research in the gut microbiome just really helped me understand how much our nervous system really plays into our health. You know, I think we've all gone to the doctor and the doctor's been like, oh no, it's just stress or something, right?
Yeah.
But no doctor has ever been able to explain to us how that works or offer us any therapies or solutions for that, right? So that's really, I think, become my forte, the more I've understood about how our bodies work through the gut microbiome, not only with nutrition, but also with, emotional resilience and strategies for managing and balancing our own internal ecosystem.
Nice. I love it. And I imagine there's so much creativity happening in our gut microbiome as well. Things working together.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Some beyond what scientists even understand.
Yes, I'm sure. It reminds me of kind of like the network of I'm totally not going to remember the term that they use, but the mushroom network under the earth and how gut microbiome connects our body and nervous systems together.
Like any ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
That ebb and flow and giving and taking from one thing to the next. That's basically what's going on. There's a living, breathing ecosystem within our bodies. It's pretty amazing.
It is so cool to think that is happening, that we're not aware, it's not happening in front of us, but happening inside of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, what does it mean to you to be creative?
So this is a hard question because I have definitely dabbled in different artistic, I played music growing up. I played piano. I was always really passionate about creating things, tangible things, like Christmas cards or I love to restain and paint things around the house and stuff. So it's hard to delineate that down to what it is at its core for me, right? And why feel this natural tendency to do all these creative things in my life, and why I feel this need to
Mhm.
create things in my life, right? Like I've
Yeah.
always felt it like this yearning, this need, almost like as strong as like hunger or like a sexual desire, is like I have to create things. Like it's
Yeah.
very strong. And but I feel like what it boils down to for me is like this place of vulnerability, like
Mm-hmm.
this allowing myself to be vulnerable in my life, because like I tend to be, like growing up, definitely have control freak tendencies. Definitely have OCD tendencies.
Yeah.
And I feel like creativity like balances me out
Mm.
and allows me to kind of let go and let things unfold in a more organic way. And
Mm.
I think that's like when we are able to do that, like to let go and let life be as it is and unfold in a creative way, that's where creativity just naturally kind of flows through us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then in creating things, we're also letting go. Right. It's kind of
Yeah.
like chicken or the egg.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. I love bringing up that piece of vulnerability because creativity does have a lot of vulnerability in it. And that experience of the unknown, you know, letting go of that control piece to allow something new to come forward, that's super hard and very rewarding when it actually happens.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like we often, I think in our lives, we think that like creating something means that we have to be like this overbearing
Mm,
partner, parent, or like parent or something. We have to like make sure the child is like doing everything perfectly. But in reality, I
yeah.
think it's more like a gardener, right? It's like you just
Mm,
kind of plant the seed, and like you take a lot of time and energy in choosing what seed you're going to plant and where you're going to plant it, and like setting up
mhm.
all the conditions for planting the seed. But then once you plant it, you just kind of let it go, right?
Yeah.
For the
Let
most
it
part.
do its thing. That's
Right.
who knows
Like
what
a
will
lot of
happen after.
intention setting in the beginning, and then
Yeah.
it's like making sure it's the right time and the right conditions, and then it's just that letting go.
Hmm. Nice.
Mhm.
It's a good reminder that it's okay to let go. It's not easy, but I mean, I I know there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into the process of letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the connection between creativity and mindfulness is a really beautiful one that many people don't pay attention to. But
Yeah, I know. I think like letting go has definitely become like the tagline for mindfulness, right?
mhm. Yep.
In a way, because I think that that's what the skill of like mindfulness, or like the practice of mindfulness, really
Mhm.
teaches us more than
Mhm.
anything, is how to allow things to be as they are, right?
Yeah. Pay
Mhm.
attention on purpose. All of that. I love it. Well, I imagine that, letting go has some challenges and being creative has some challenges that come along with it. What are some of the challenges that you have faced and how do you creatively solve them? Or what are some of the creative challenges that you have faced and how do you face them?
Yeah. Um, so I think some of the biggest challenges, maybe you want to talk about like life challenges or like creativity challenges. I don't know. Both.
Whatever
I mean,
comes, whatever's alive for you in this moment.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think that they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Like, or we have life challenges, or feeling stuck in our lives in a relationship, or like a work
Hmm.
situation, or like, whatever it may be. Then it it leaves us feeling uninspired in every area of our life,
Yeah.
right? Um, so yeah, I mean, for me, one of the biggest challenges that I've run into is like the loss of my dad when I was 25, and like everything
Hmm.
that kind of surrounded that. It was kind of this big moment in my life where I probably felt the most stuck
Mm.
that I've
Yeah.
ever felt. And I realized that like the people that I was relying on for support, namely like my family,
Mm-hmm.
that their way of dealing with grief, right? Like everybody deals with grief differently,
Mm-hmm.
and their way was really to kind of avoid it and
Mm-hmm.
to detach from the family even
Yeah.
more. So my family sort of like dispersed when my father died, and I was the only one who didn't react that way. I guess like I handled my grief differently, and like wanting to, needing support and reaching out to people and that sort of thing, and not getting that back was a big defining moment for me, where I realized I had to kind of let go of my expectations that I had
Mm-hmm.
for my family, and like how things were, how this family was going to look in the aftermath of my father's death, right? Like
Yeah.
it was just a completely different family. It's like it was dispersed. It was just, it just felt like it was gone. Like it
Yeah.
was really hard. So like my father had been sort of like the heart of the family. He was the one who stayed home with us when we were kids. He was like a
Mm-hmm.
stay-at-home dad. He like worked, but he also ran our family, helped run our family business, but he was really the one who was like picking us up from soccer practice, and like
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we got to school on time and all that. Um so yeah, it was kind of in that letting go process of my expectations for them that I was able to kind of open myself up to more support coming from other people in my life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when my family sort of fell apart, um, things really shifted dramatically for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke up with a longtime boyfriend I'd been in kind of this stagnant relationship with for many years, and turned my attention towards creating a supportive community around me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was very soon after that that I met the love of my life, William. And we
Mm-hmm.
started a family and our own community together around us. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really that major letting go of, you know, of certain people in my life or certain expectations and all of that, that really
Yeah.
led to this major opening and like new life sort of forming in front of me, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense. It's kind of a long-winded answer
Yeah.
to your question.
No, it makes total sense. Thanks for sharing that. I think we forget the how creativity shows up in grief, how it shows up in when things fall apart, when our expectations crumble, how much creativity is available to us in those moments as well. And really speaking to, how it showed up for you and where you were able to make some shifts and changes and different choices. It sounds like
Right,
really helped makes repair and also honor the reality of what is happening.
right. I feel
Mhm.
like that's like the biggest blessing for creativity for me is like, once I realize that I'm kind of beating a dead horse, or,
Mhm. Yeah.
whatever phrase there's so many different
Mhm.
common phrases for that notion of kind of like, you know, if you keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, or,
Right.
that all of that, I feel like creativity is what allows us to kind of shift what we're doing so that we can get that different result that we want.
Mhm. Yeah, it really helps us to stay curious and to continue to ask questions and gives us, I think there's some permission to design an experience how we want it to be and how might you go about doing that and being curious and staying really present with that experience as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's easy to get caught up in like, again, like our expectations or how we think things are supposed to go, or we want
Mhm.
them to go, or, I mentioned my control tendencies. Like I'm definitely a planner. Like,
Yes.
like ask William.
You're not alone in this. I too am a planner.
Yeah. So I've over the years I've learned to balance and embrace my planning tendencies.
Mhm.
Um, but then to then kind of throw them to the wind. Right?
Yeah.
Like I have to plan things. I have to have some idea of how things are going to go, but then I also have to then let go of all of those ideas and expectations and just kind of like allow things to happen in a more natural way. And I think that the better I get at the letting go piece after planning, you know, the better the outcome usually is in my life.
I love it. I mean, as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that is the process I experience as well. The planning, and then maybe these plans will work, maybe they won't, and that's okay. And so maybe a better plan will arise in whatever I end up doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to get stuck in like thinking, oh, I have to either make a plan and stick to the plan, or I'm just not going to make a plan and just like let things happen. But like then there's like no intention setting. Like the planning is like the planning is like the seed. It's like choosing the seed and like choosing where you're going to put it. Right. And then so that's okay. It's okay to plan. It's helpful.
Planning is important sometimes.
Yeah. So anybody who's ever told me that I'm an over planner, like, no. I disagree.
No one has ever said that to you, ever. Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm super curious. As a kid, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
So I definitely spent a lot of time outside as a kid. You know, this was like in an era before, like we had this tiny little TV, like the size of like a little computer that was like on top of a bureau that was like 6 feet tall to me, like as a child. So like screens were just like not a form of entertainment, right? They weren't available to me. And if I did want to watch anything, I had to somehow get a parent's attention from me or one of my 3 younger brothers to place a VHS tape, you know, or a beta tape, like into this like crazy object up on top of this 6 foot tall bureau. So like that just felt like really daunting task. So to me as a child. So I went outside a lot. We had like this big field and forest beyond the field. And so I just like did imaginary play out there all the time. I, you know, imagined I was like this explorer, like discovering things in the forest and in the field. And I would bring my dolls out there and like have a picnic and like all this stuff. And yeah, I think outside, just being outside. And then I definitely always loved art, as lots of little girls do. So my mom set up this table for me, or maybe probably my dad actually set up this big table for me with like paper and like, you know, colored pencils and crayons and paint, and just was like, it was all mine, and it felt luxurious and like I could create anything, until it was like a complete mess and I didn't know how to clean it up. So it would just sit there, but you know, I used it a lot. I used that creativity desk.
Nice. And I mean, you talked about imaginative play. Do you feel that that's something that you've retained as an adult, imaginative play, or is it something that maybe you've left behind?
I've tried.
Great.
I mean, now that I have like 2 little kids, it's, you know, my focus has just been so much on encouraging their creativity, right? Like I don't want them to be stuck behind screens all day. So how can I set up the conditions for them to have the childhood I had and had these sort of moments of creativity, and my attention gets so focused on them sometimes that I forget about my own, you know, or like, you know, in work, you know, building a business and working, it's hard. It's really hard to hold on to that, but I definitely, you know, not as often as I would like, but I definitely take time to, I think writing has been my biggest form of creativity as an adult. And so, you know, whether it's just writing a social media post
Mm-hmm.
or, writing an email to a friend or journaling, like I feel like my creativity and my imagination flow very easily onto the page for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. And it's something that's easy because I sit at a computer all day anyway. So like if I want to pull up a Word document and start journaling about something, then it's easy to do that versus, piano and outdoor exploration, a little bit less accessible.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I think I'm always curious if people have kind of maintained the things they did in childhood as adults and how they've done that. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like the writing really does captivate or activate that imagination in a more adult, using air quotes, adult fashion for you.
I know that's the challenge for me. My creativity is like, there's so many things that I like to do to be creative. And it's like, how can I merge my creativity with my work, or merge my creativity with my parenting, or merge it with something that like I have to do and as an adult. And that's the biggest creativity puzzle
Yeah.
of all time, right?
Absolutely. And I think creativity goes so well with all of the things we do. Sometimes it's how we look at it, like the lens that we're looking at a situation through. Is it a creative one, or is it like my parenting hat is on, my creative hat is not in this moment? Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to think of myself as a creative parent. Like I think of like I have a creative parenting hat, that I put on as well. But yeah, it has to be intentional because I think as we get older, right, like our critical mind, that's what makes us into adults, develops and evolves. And like I see my children with no critical minds, right?
It hasn't developed yet.
Yeah. And they seem so free and so in the moment all the time. And I'm like, so it's a constant reminder of like, how do I get that back? Like I remember what it was like sort of to feel that way, or I can somewhat conjure up the memory of that. And so I do think that's a good reminder for me as a parent, just like seeing my children and how naturally creative they are in every moment. Every moment of their lives is creative.
Yeah.
Like it just is. Like they just come up with creative solutions. Like, I mean, my daughter's only 6, so I think it happens a little bit later in life, maybe around age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where we start to be like, I'm bored or something, right? There's nothing to do. But like most of the time, my children, that never comes out of their mouth because, they're just engrossed in every moment.
There's always an adventure to be had.
This age. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So what are some, I mean, you shared like your kids do this in terms of like creative problem solving, but what are some of the everyday issues that you've had that you use creativity to solve?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that in running our organization, Skillful Means, my husband and I run a wellness organization that is built around coaching and courses, online courses, and also in-person events and retreats. It seems like this is like an everyday occurrence, that we have to come up with a creative solution. And, because there isn't anybody telling us what to do or how to do this. And I think everybody, if you work for yourself or you're building an organization, like everybody does it in a different way. And so we're constantly running up against things that, we have to let go of how we thought we were going to do it. And then, and to be open to a new creative solution, or, we're trying to do something that, this really comes into play the most when it comes to roles, because that's the biggest creativity puzzle, I think, is that, between just a handful of people, how are we going to, have all these departments like an organization would have. Yeah. So that's definitely the trickiest part, is figuring out, like, who has what strengths and what hats what person's going to wear on any given day, because
Right.
it's like always changing. and we're constantly like redefining our roles and the roles of the people that work with us, and realizing that sometimes we think we need to do something, we think we need to hire out for something, or like bring someone with expertise in that, we then realize that we're actually the only person that can do that.
Oh.
And other times it's the opposite, obviously, like we try to do something and we're like, nope, this isn't working. Like we need, and then it's like a back and forth, journey, because like we're learning as we go along. So, yeah, it's not only are we like putting together this puzzle, but we're like building the pieces as we go.
And now for a word from our sponsor, Skillful Means. I'm here with Dr. William Jackson, founder of Skillful Means. If you are interested in deepening your relationship to mindfulness, you absolutely need to check out skillfulmeans.life. Not only is mindfulness an important aspect of creativity, but it also supports you in your everyday life.
If you've ever experienced stagnation in your meditation practice, or had your doctor tell you you should probably try meditation, or you just want to spice up your meditation practice that you already have, then you absolutely need to check out all the amazing programs offered at skillfulmeans.life. Skillful Means is an organization that helps people take mindfulness off the meditation cushion and apply the insights from your practice to your life. We help performers, athletes, and the spiritually curious integrate mindfulness into their lives every day in a meaningful way.
We all have busy lives, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I push my mindfulness practice to the bottom of my to-do list. With Skillful Means, I have the opportunity to join a group, a drop-in meditation class, or a weekend retreat to help keep me accountable. The more support we have to hone mindfulness, the better.
And at Skillful Means, we currently offer tons of ways to participate, from our free community platform to challenges, live events, do-it-yourself courses, intensive training programs with world-class meditation teachers.
So what are you waiting for? Go check out all the ways Skillful Means can support your mindfulness practice today at skillfulmeans.life. Yeah, it makes sense. I get it. And it's ever changing. And I think it sounds like the experience of creativity in that ever changing hat. I feel like musical hats you're playing with, like who's doing what today.
Right.
Yeah. Takes a lot of creativity.
It's essential because when we get bogged down with like just the everyday, running of the business, and like, we can't think of those creative solutions. We can't like move in a new direction. We can't take an opportunity that's being presented to us, right? Or like figure out how we can learn from a mistake, right? Or learn from a growth opportunity, as I like to call them. I try not to use the word mistake anymore.
Yeah. Learning opportunities.
Yeah, like I think school is where we learn that we make mistakes, right? The mistakes are a thing.
Yeah.
Because I think in life, there is no such thing as mistakes, right? In real life, it's like as a kid, and you're learning how to walk and you fall down. Is that a mistake? Right? Like that's how you learn, right? Like you have to learn through trial and error sometimes. So
yeah, that's
definitely, I think, where in the past, like I've gotten really stuck is thinking like, oh, I made this mistake, and like hindsight's always 20/20, right? And it's easy to get stuck in the past. But I feel like the older I get and the more creative projects I do, the more I've learned that there are no mistakes, and that those mistakes were actually in some ways like the biggest blessings of my life, because it's what allowed me to learn and grow in a different direction. Right?
Nice. Great. That's a good reframe for people who are listening and who really struggle with making mistakes or feeling like they've failed at something, and how to, get some distance from it and see that, oh, actually this is opening up a whole new area that I'm really passionate about, or I learned something really important through this challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to like put ourselves back into the mindset that we were, the place that we were when we, quote unquote, made that mistake or like made that choice, and have like compassion for that person.
Right.
Like, because like now it's like 3 months or 2 years later or whatever it is. And we're looking back, we're like, why did you do that? Like, what were you thinking? Like, because now we've learned, now we're a different person and we have a different perspective, but we weren't that person when we made that choice, or we did that thing. Right. So like, we couldn't have made a different choice. It just like the situation, the conditions were set up so that was what we had to do.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So just having that compassion for myself has been the bit, I think, like what allows me to really get those blessings that are in every learning opportunity buried in there.
I love it. Yeah. Well, for people who don't think they're creative or don't feel creative, how would you encourage them to find creativity in their life?
Yeah, I think this is something that I do with all of my coaching clients. And so it's interesting that I would say the same thing to, somebody who's trying to be creative, right? But the people I'm working with, they're trying to, feel better mentally or physically in some sort of healthy, be more healthy in some kind of way in their life. And, I think it all comes down to the same thing when we find or create or allow some sort of space of quiet in our lives, like even if it's just for a couple minutes, even if it's just like putting up that no vacancy sign for 2 minutes a day, that this is where we let things, if we can, we can like allow things to kind of settle and be as they are, right? And this is where mindfulness comes in, or like a meditation practice, I think is really helpful in cultivating that skill of just kind of letting things be as they are, letting things settle, just kind of sitting with it. And it's, it's easy in our day-to-day lives to just like keep going with the flow, keep going with our habits without ever pausing and allowing, without trying to change things, right? We're always trying to change our lives, change some sort of situation. But that's, where the controlling mind, that critical mind is becoming overbearing. We're not recognizing all these other factors and circumstances in our lives that are happening outside of our little mind environment where we think that we can control everything, right? So it's like taking those couple minutes a day, just for me, can make the biggest difference in my day. Like I try to do it as early in the day as possible. First thing in the morning is great because then it just like sets my day off right. But if it doesn't happen until later in the day, that's fine too, right? If it doesn't happen that day, that's great. Like, but I try to do it every day if possible, because that's where, when I let go, that I can just like see all of these other people or situations, or like, all this other support that's available to me that like I wasn't looking at before. And then like a solution will oftentimes just like drop into my lap, when I'm not trying to find it, when I'm not trying to create a certain outcome or control things.
Yeah. Nice. Great reminders to have some pauses in your day. We can all benefit from that, taking a 2-minute pause. And yeah, I like putting up the no vacancy sign. That was a good image to do. But it has been such a treat to chat with you. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It definitely feels like a dropping in, an allowing, like whatever feelings, emotions, like sensations. Like I struggled with hip pain from ages 14 through 32, like sciatica hip pain. So it's like dropping and allowing whatever's there to be there, but staying rooted in our body, staying rooted in like even just like feeling our feet on the ground, or like listening to the trees, the leaves in the trees, like that for me is so grounding. Listening to being outside. So that's, I think, the key for me to just like feeling creative in any given moment, is to see if I can balance those two, of being with what things are without getting overwhelmed by it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the mindfulness piece really comes into play for me personally, is because I get very easily overwhelmed with life and very easily anxious in any given moment. So like without mindfulness, I don't know how I would cope with life. I would be like a complete disaster.
Completely different person for sure.
Completely different person personally, just because, I tend to get very caught up in things very easily. Or that's like my tendency, or my younger childhood tendency.
I feel that. I understand that one. Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. And if people want to learn more about your book, your coaching, all the programs you do, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing is just to check out what we do at Skillful Means. Most people kind of define meditation as sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed and focusing on the breath. But at Skillful Means, we define this practice as the practice of cultivating mindfulness on and off our cushion, right? So we can practice it on our cushion, but and how do we bring it into our daily life, right? So we do that with how to bring it into our work with creativity, how do we bring it into our body with, mindful eating and nutrition, and how to bring it into our career with, our everyday life with our vision for well-being. And I think it's very similar to like when we lose our sense of time and space, that we, that's a beautiful feeling. But when we can have that perspective of kind of like what's pulling us in the direction of our own well-being, that's where we can really thrive, I think. So that's really what we aim to do at Skillful Means.
Nice. Well, I will put those links into the show notes, and they can find your book at Skillful Means as well.
Yeah. Or on Amazon. It's called A Gut Feeling. It's all about tuning into the microbiome. So you can search for my name, Heather Ann Wise, A Gut Feeling, and or on my Instagram at Heather Ann Wise with an E and with an E on Instagram. So yeah, there's links to all my stuff on those places.
Perfect. And I'll put them into the show notes, so easy access for all the listeners. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been awesome.
This has been amazing. Thank you. These are really interesting questions. I love thinking about them. It's really fascinating. I think that anybody who's listening, if they could take the time to ask themselves some of these same questions, I think it could be a really mind-altering experience.
Nice. Yeah.
Love your question.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.